When your partner at the time or your family would say, what's going on, you don't seem like yourself, how would you respond to them?
I did everything to convince them that I was fine. Like, I didn't want them asking any more questions about where I'm at, because like ultimately in my head, nothing could be done about it. Like this is just it. So when they would come to me and I was like, I know I'm slipping, but I can't let them know I'm slipping. But then essentially by me doing that, I'm training them to not ask me again.
That's James Alexander. He's a young dad, an expert strength and conditioning coach, and a community leader with a great life ahead of him. None of it would have happened if there'd been a different result to the attempt James made on his life in 2019.
I had gone into this, started thinking about what if I disappeared? Would anyone notice? Would anyone care? Everyone would be fine without me. No one gets me anyway.
He's been through a divorce, switched careers, and learned to navigate single parenting all by the age of 30.
It's really good, man. And he tells me he misses me and he loves me and all that sort of stuff. So real wholesome stuff.
James does intense physical challenges to raise tens of thousands for mental health, and his next one's coming up in early 2023. Go to the link in the show notes to donate. Welcome to Young Blood, an award-winning podcast on a mission to make the mental health of young men a top priority. My name's Callum McPherson, I'm a journalist, and this is our platform to open up and share stories of what we've been through, because we're not alone. Let's do it. Trigger warning, if you find anything spoken about in today's episode distressing, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. James, how would you describe what your life was like up until 2018?
Up until 2018, on paper you would think perfect. Had everything I'd ever wanted. I had the job that I was working towards for 10 years, married, just had a kid, 2 brand new cars in a new house, materialistically perfect. But yeah, I mean, internally, I know there's always looking for something more, I think, the next thing. That's probably the best way to describe where I was before.
So did you have a feeling like you sort of just coasted along and it was too easy to get to that point? In a sense, or?
Yeah, I think when I do things, I go all in on them. So getting to the next step was always not easy, but it was the next thing. It just happened. It just kept happening, and similar with life.
Was that because you're very good at focusing and dedicating yourself?
I apply myself when I do things. I do it completely with everything I've got. So it just kind of was flowing, and then I got to a point where I was like, but now what?
You ticked all the boxes.
Yeah. I've done everything that I thought I was meant to do, and then I was like, uh-oh, I'm 28 and I've lost not lost everything, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm I don't know what I'm doing now.
And up to that point, when it came to making big decisions with relationships and careers in particular, what went into making those decisions for you? What were you making them based off?
To be honest, probably pressure. I just thought it was the next, from myself. Probably what I thought was expected of me, more so than anything. I could say societal pressure, but I think it's also internal. You have this idea of what it's meant to look like, so you do it, and then you do it, and you're like, what have I done?
Yeah, because then you sort of box yourself into a corner, even though that's where you always wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And then the reality of it, once you have it, isn't what you thought it would be.
Yeah.
And then I guess it feels like you can't get out of it now because you've made certain decisions that mean that you have to follow that path.
Or hurt people, let people down and all that sort of stuff, which again adds pressure to yourself, but
So that idea of what you thought you wanted out of life, where do you think that came from? Was that your parents, just a combination of how society tells us we're supposed to
I think
act?
More so the societal standard, I guess, or expectation. I didn't have the perfect family home growing up. I had split parents and all that sort of stuff. So that wasn't something, maybe that does contribute to an extent. I wanted the perfect life because I didn't have it growing up, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I think a little bit of just building this image in your head when you're a little bit younger, or you're working towards something, and then you get to a point, you're like, oh, this doesn't make me happy.
Did you feel like you were enjoying it along the way, or were you racing to try to tick the boxes?
I don't think I was racing. I definitely did enjoy my life. It got to a point where I was like, now what though? I definitely did have great times, and I wouldn't change anything that I got to do or experience or see and spend time with the people that I did, but definitely got to a point where I was at the end of the road.
What do you think was lacking at that point when you reflect on it now?
Passion, probably, in both sense in the home life and in the career field. I definitely, at work, I spent so much time working that I blame, when things did get tough, I blamed the home situation for why I was like not that passionate at work, and then I'd do the same the other way around.
Yep.
So not taking the responsibility myself to some extent, and like owning what I was actually wanting, not what was expected of me in my own mind.
Yep. And you're always in hospitality since
14.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started as a glassy when I was 14 in a pub in Glenelg, and then just when I finished school, started working in a restaurant, then got into management, and progressed from there.
So that all happened pretty rapidly for you.
Yeah, I was a hotel GM by the time I was 25. So
yeah,
it's like in the big scheme, it's pretty quick to get to where I got to.
Yeah, so the sort of life where people would look at it and say, he's got it all, he's perfect.
Even I did that. I was like, once I'm there, I'm happy. That's the point.
And how did you notice your mental health start to decline? Was that at the point where you were looking around and wanting something more?
Yeah, I think so. So I'd worked in a few big venues, and we'd just done a major renovation. I was doing 60 to 80 hours a week. Some weeks, like the 80s weren't common, but more close to the 60 every week, and not getting to enjoy any sort of like quality of life. I was just waking up, going to work, coming home, thinking about work on my days off. I was always tired. I think that definitely contributed. Like I overdid it there, and then didn't give enough time to the things that I enjoyed anymore. So I kind of lost interest in the things that used to make me happy. Then I just figured I didn't enjoy anything anymore. So like there was a lot of contributors there. Like it's not just work. I didn't apply myself correctly either, I don't think.
Were you looking after yourself at that time?
No, I stopped training, stopped playing basketball, which I loved back then. And like I wasn't doing things to help myself, for sure.
Is that because it became about, I've got to make this money and fulfill this important role that I'm in, and that's really the priority, and this is just what growing up is, and you're supposed to sacrifice the fun stuff and your health, because when you actually grow up, you're supposed to just go and do an important job and make lots of money and just shut up. And
it's exactly it. I felt trapped by the paycheck because I was making great money, and I was like, if I've worked, let's say my whole life, but like since I was 14, because I wanted this career, I've worked towards it. Now I've got this paycheck that I'm happy with. Obviously I was married and had a kid as well, so I felt the pressure to provide. So my then wife didn't have to go back to work, so she could spend the time with our son. And I don't know, I got to a point where I was like, I can't do anything, I have to keep doing this.
Yeah.
But that was eventually my trap.
And I suppose looking into the future and thinking, I'm going to have to keep doing this forever. Always.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's
there's no break. Yeah.
How a lot of people live their lives thinking that, and in a lot of cases that's the reality as well. How much did that weigh on your mind?
Yeah, a lot. I think at some points I was like, I need to do something about this, but then I would get to a point where I can't. I just have to shut up and do it, essentially. That was like, I just had to come to terms with the fact that there is no out.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So feeling that way, how did that start to manifest in your behaviour, and did other people notice it?
My ex at the time, she was my partner at the time, sorry. My ex now, she noticed the shift in me, definitely. She was like, you don't seem as happy. And it started to crumble from there. My sister had reached out and said a few things, like just checking in when she wouldn't really do that normally. Like I said before, I just stopped doing the things that I enjoyed doing. So there wasn't real joy in my world. I was just working, coming home, arguing, going to bed, doing it all again. Like, I think...
Do you feel like you didn't deserve joy anymore?
I honestly don't think I even understood what it meant anymore to be happy. Like, I was like, this is just life. You just have to get on with it. It's pretty like fatalistic, I guess, but or definite, I guess. But I got to a point where I was like, this is it. This is your life now. I
suppose to a degree, ironically, you were so in control of your life, but then you were actually completely out of control of your life too, because you couldn't go and do anything that you wanted to do, to the point where you didn't even know what you wanted to do anymore. Yeah, because I stopped doing the things I cared about. So what can I even do? And when your partner at the time or your family would say, what's going on, you don't seem like yourself, how would you respond to them? I did everything to convince them that I was fine. Like,
I didn't want them asking any more questions about where I'm at, because like ultimately in my head, nothing could be done about it. Like this is just it. So when they would come to me and I was like, I know I'm slipping, but I can't let them know I'm slipping. But then essentially by me doing that, I'm training them to not ask me again.
Yep.
To just leave it alone. This is James now. This is how he is. But then when they didn't ask, I was like, I'm alone. No one cares about me. It's just, it's such
it was sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing.
100%.
Yeah. Why didn't you want to bring anyone else into it, do you think?
Probably a bit of fear involved, definitely. Probably a little bit of the whole, you can't do that, you're a man sort of deal. Probably didn't really know how to either. That's probably the biggest point. Like to actually own, that's where I was at emotionally. Like I've always been a pretty sensitive person. Like I'll do it internally. I'll take things on when people say things and I like really feel it.
So not in terms of expressing it.
Yeah. And that's something I've had to learn to do, obviously, in the last couple of years. But back then I wouldn't have had any idea how to do it.
Okay. Did you see any examples of it? Did you know anyone in your life who'd spoken about their mental health before?
Only my ex's brother. He struggled with depression pretty severely, like to a point of being in a very dark space at one point. But he's like alpha male, and that was like, you can't, like you're not that guy. Do you know what I mean? So like he was a boxer, tough as nails kind of bloke, and seeing him go through that, and it was like you could see that he almost felt a little bit shamed by it. So I was like, fuck it, he can't do it. How am I meant to? But he did do the work and he got through it. So
right. So you felt like you didn't deserve to complain?
Yeah,
compared to him?
Yeah, I felt like his life was harder than mine. So what? Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Essentially, I know it sounds stupid now. Now that I say it out loud and I've like been through everything I've been through.
No, but that is what
seems insane.
That is what we think, though, isn't it? I think men, especially, do feel that burden of I need to be the stoic provider individual who is unbreakable, who especially a female partner can rely on at all times, and I can carry the world on my shoulders. And for me to be anything less than that is just an embarrassment, and that's sort of how we're conditioned to think, at least from an early age, until we realise that if you don't let other people in and you don't talk about these things and you don't allow yourself to be more than just this like rigid sandpaper-like character, then ultimately you can't be effective. You can't be that supportive partner. You can't be the person who has everyone on their shoulders, because it's all going to fall in a heap and come to a head eventually.
And it's funny, like with my ex's brother, he was like, that's who I compared my issues to. So I was like, it's not like you don't get the right to, but once I'd gone through everything I'd gone through, I actually used him as motivation, be like, look at what he did. He had it way worse than you. Like he battled through that, and now look at him. Yeah. He's living his life, he's happy, he's made all these positive changes. So he went from me looking at him going, I can't do it, look, he's doing it harder, shut up, to look at what he did, that's amazing. So like it's funny how you can, when your perspective or your mindset shifts, what you can actually.
But even back then, you thinking that it was weak to speak up about that sort of stuff, or being embarrassed about it, but you're looking at a pretty hard man who you admire, and he's talking about it, and you didn't see it as weakness from him. Yeah,
no.
You know,
it's funny. It's like giving and taking advice, right? You can be really good at giving it, but when it's your turn to do the exact same thing, you're like, oh no.
It's a lot harder, yeah. Did you think it was something that would pass, or as time went on, did you think this is me, this is who I'm becoming?
I mean, like, I think for myself, like realising or recognising the slip of my mental health kind of happened like over 18 months, like from little thoughts to by the time it got to its peak. I think I felt myself slipping, so I knew deep down that it wasn't going to get better, but I also had no idea what to do about it. And like, I don't know, when you're in that situation, it's easy to just say, like, I'll deal with it tomorrow. Yeah. Or I'll look into what I can do tomorrow.
Especially if you're working 60 to 80 hours a week and you're like just supporting people.
Just get on with it, basically, is the approach I took, which is obviously not the right approach.
Which is what got you in that position.
Yeah, exactly. And it just kept getting worse and worse. But until I got to that point, I had no idea what to do. So I got to a point where I had to do something.
Do you feel like I'm the man of the house now, I'm the one who's responsible for looking after others? Did that have the effect of making you feel like, well, I don't really matter that much in the scheme of things?
Yeah, I felt completely alone, which is silly because I had a wife and a kid who depended on me to some extent. Family members that like they lived 2 minutes away. They always rang or we'd see each other at least weekly. Like, but for some reason I was like, I'm completely alone here. No
So
one
it was
cares.
really this narrative in your head,
So
wasn't it?
I was painting it myself though. That's the...
Yeah, and you thought it wasn't something that you could choose or something that you could
that was it.
change.
It's reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it wasn't, obviously, but...
Yeah, but it's convincing, isn't it? We're really good at convincing ourselves of how things are. So how did it affect your marriage?
Like I said before, like working those hours in the stressful job that I was in, I would blame home life on work and work life on home. And eventually it just created a divide between us where we weren't communicating like nearly at all. Like I would work so much that I'd leave before she woke up. And my son, like I'd kiss him on the head before I left and he'd be in bed when I got home some days. And she'd be so tired from looking after him all day. When I get home, she'd be like, eat dinner, have a shower and go to bed. And I'm sitting there on the couch by myself like, what is even happening right now?
Were you conscious of trying to avoid contact with them and spend more time at work, or did that just seem to happen?
I think that just seemed to happen for me. I genuinely wanted to be at home.
Yeah.
There were definitely days where I was like, I cannot leave right now. I have to stay here, which I, in reality, probably didn't. It's just, again, the pressure I built in my head about what I had to deliver on both sides was like, it was impossible, but I built that.
And you just wouldn't allow any actual open, honest communication, but whenever your partner tried or family tried?
Probably in that 18 months of when I started to feel myself slip to where I got to at the very end of that night anyway, we probably had 2 conversations. She brought it up once. I fluffed over and said there's nothing wrong. Like, I'm just tired, I'm just stressed at work, blah, blah, blah. And then probably 3 months before we split up, I had brought it up to her one night that I was like really struggling with my thoughts, and I didn't go down the road of the conversation about being suicidal, but it was definitely there in my head. So I thought, if I'm thinking like this, I at least need to start a conversation so she's not completely blindsided by where I'm at now. And she knew that I'd changed and like I'd gone quiet, stopped doing things I cared about, but I think that one kind of scared her a little bit as well, because the conversation that followed that was like, well, what are we going to do about it? What are you going to do?
And what was the answer to that night?
That was the first time I looked up psychologists and how to go about a mental health plan and all that sort of stuff. So
Did you go?
no,
Yeah.
I looked it all up, found like I booked a GP appointment, didn't go to the GP appointment. I was like, I'll be fine, just forget about it. It was just a bad night.
Yeah.
Yeah, which obviously it wasn't.
Yeah. And there's those steps involved for that. So obviously that's a really important time to go and seek that kind of help, and you take that first step in looking it up, and then it's like, got to go to the GP and then get the mental health plan and then go to the psychologist. And so you can empathise with, like, for a lot of dudes, just even admitting that you're typing this into the computer to look it up, that's enough of a step,
for
let
sure.
alone the next 5 steps that you have to do. But if you had done that at that point, you know, it could have made all the difference.
Yeah. You can't live in what if land, but I 100%, yeah, for sure. What could have been possibly.
You started out by realising that you didn't really enjoy stuff you used to enjoy, and you didn't find you could have much fun out of your life and felt sort of like trapped. Were there other things that you were able to signpost that you were obviously getting worse up to the point of that suicide attempt?
I think more just internally. Like, I felt myself just enjoying being alive less every day. Not every day, but like gradually it felt less and less exciting to be doing the things. Like, I genuinely, when I first got that job, I loved it. I loved going to work, seeing people. I'm a massive people person.
Yeah.
Huge extrovert. Then being around people, I was like, oh, get out of my face.
Yeah.
I'm sick of being around you. Like, the little things. Like, and then sport, just quit all sport. I was playing basketball and I was boxing at the time as well. Just literally just dropped it all like that. I just wasn't enjoying anything. Like, mates would like invite me out for dinner and drinks and stuff. I'd say yes, and then last minute I'd just cancel.
Yeah.
So I can't make it. Sorry, I've got to work, and then obviously I wasn't at work.
And you wouldn't have felt like yourself either.
No, not at all. But again, I didn't know. I knew what I was feeling, but I didn't know
how to
what
articulate it as well.
I was like, I know I'm struggling, but I don't know how to verbalize what's actually happening in my head.
And especially if you are an extroverted person and you're used to being perceived a certain way, people are going to ask questions too. And then the other part of that is, this isn't me, and then I don't like myself.
Yeah.
And I imagine you start to not like whoever you're turning into as well, and that just makes it worse.
I think one of the scary things about that too for me was like you just said, like, because I'm an extrovert, people notice the change. And then if someone asked me like, well, what are you going to do about it? Or what are you doing about it? I didn't have the answer. So I was like, well, just avoid the entire situation. Just remove yourself from it so that question doesn't happen.
Yeah, so don't go at all, because you know people are going to ask.
They'll notice, and then you have to answer the question which you don't have the answer to.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, I'm pretty extroverted myself, but sort of go between the two. And there are times where I can be quiet and nothing is wrong. I'm just not feeling super energetic that day or whatever. But generally I am a bit of a louder person, and people know me that way too. And so when I am off and things aren't going so well, I definitely feel that pressure too. And going into social situations, like my friends and family are going to pick up on it, which I'm grateful for. Yeah. And these days I'll actually express what's wrong, which is a great feeling. And like, then it allows them to do it, and then you have that real connection. But I've certainly felt that in the past too, to an annoying extent, where people are like, what's wrong with you? Just because you're being quiet for a minute. But obviously they're also picking up on when there genuinely is something going on, because I think that's one of the most normal reactions that we have, is that withdrawal, that isolating ourselves and just pulling back, because the voice in your head and your internal monologue and how you're feeling inside is just enough without all the external happening as well. When was your son born, and how did that affect you?
There was a lot of pressure around his birth. I think a little bit built by myself.
From when you found out you were going to be a dad?
Yeah. Like the minute I found out, I was like, oh shit, I don't think I'm ready.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty normal when you have your first kid. I was 26, and that's just like, you work out what to do pretty quickly, like, and you get past that. But once he was born, that all of that just went away, like complete infatuation with him. Like, I was like, you have no choice but to work it out now. And when they're in your hands, man, like all of that stuff goes away. But then once the dust settles, it all started creeping back. So I had like a good probably 3 months.
Yeah.
From when he was born to like, oh shit, now what? I'm back here. And there's another person.
Because then you were thinking about yourself again?
Yeah. Like things had settled enough to be like, okay, this is a routine now. Like, she's got her routine for the day with him. He's starting to develop his own like sleeping patterns and feeding and all that sort of stuff. And I guess as a dad, like a new dad anyway, you're not needed as much in those, like you're needed for support, but you can't do as much.
You're not needed like the mother's needed.
Yeah, so like you kind of sit back and you're like, I don't get to spend time with you because you're doing that with him. Like, you could be there, but you're not getting quality time with either of them really, because they're glued together, and that's beautiful. Like, it's fantastic. But I was sitting there like, okay, I'm struggling with my mental health, and I'm sitting here going, they don't need me.
Yeah, which of course they do.
Of course they do.
That story in your
my head, yeah.
And it just only serves to emphasize dad goes to work all day into the night, and then comes home and then does that again.
I'm doing that. They're getting by fine. He's an amazing kid. She's happy. What do they need me for? Just a paycheck.
Yeah.
Like that's what I told myself. Obviously they needed me for a lot more than that, but like that's the story I painted in my head.
Yeah. And the pressure of, well, now I have to provide for this person.
I'll never be able to change my career or do the thing that I want to do or find that passion. Now this is your role now.
Yeah.
Pretty dark road, to be honest. But.
And so the next 3 months or whatever it is, what happened?
So that hamster wheel of like thoughts going, they don't need you. They're getting by without you. You just have to work and provide the money. Like, that just kept spiraling and obviously not doing the things I enjoyed anymore. A mate of mine got me out to a CrossFit gym. I started training and I was like, I loved it, but felt like I was out of place because it was in my head. I was misunderstood. People didn't really get me properly. So that was just another thing that I added to the story. Like, people don't get you. Like, it was like saying it out loud I understand how much I built it up myself.
Yeah.
In my own head, but like to
That's
me
classic,
at the time, that was reality. That was just like, that's how it is. Someone doesn't quite understand what you're like, the way you are as a person.
Which how could they? Because you wouldn't let anyone.
Correct. Like I was just like not letting people get me because I was just saying like half truths. I was giving them the bite of it, but not the whole sandwich, I guess. But
and then just informing that narrative and the idea,
I was fueling it,
saying I'm alone and no one understands me. That does become true because you're making that the case.
Yeah.
But at the time, it feels like you're powerless for that, and that's happening to you.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so right before my son was born, just to backtrack slightly, I was obviously struggling, and like we were communicating, but we were always at each other's throats, obviously, like the pressure of pregnancy and the stress that's involved for her and for me.
Yeah.
I had like gone into this, like started thinking about what if I disappeared? Would anyone notice? Would anyone care? Everyone would be fine without me. Like, no one gets me anyway. And then all like that 3-month period that I said where he was born, and I was like completely infatuated with him, and I had no
So I forgot about it for a while.
It just went on the back burner. Like it wasn't even there for that time frame. But then when I slipped out of that phase, I guess, it all came flooding back, and I was like, the more I went to work and they looked fine, and people would stop checking to see how I'm going and stuff because I'd trained them to essentially. I was like, you could disappear, no one would notice. People don't need you. Why are you here? You hate your job, your home life's like, yes, obviously I loved them both, but like it was slipping away from me. Like I could feel it. I was falling out of love with her. The only thing, like in reality, if he wasn't born and I was in that mindset, I wouldn't have stayed, which is a pretty hard thing to say out loud. But again, the pressure of having a child all circles back to how we got there as well. So like, I can't say that it would have ended if we didn't have a kid. But the pressure of the two combined made me get to that point where I was like, I'm not needed. And then it gets to a point where she is from Mount Gambier. Her parents live there. So she'd go home on like a weekend here and there, get support and have a break and see her family and stuff. And she'd take Jackson with him. And I'd only have Sundays off. So they'd be gone on my day off. So on my day off, I didn't see my son. And I was like, now I don't even get the things I enjoy. But like, obviously she needed a break. Yeah. I'm not zero, like there's nothing wrong with her doing that. I was like, you do what you need to do. You need a break.
How you were viewing things at the time.
Yeah, and I was taking it personally and building it up again and again. Like
without sharing any of this though.
Look, now they're going away and they don't even need you. Look, their life goes on without you.
And that voice that you keep speaking in, did that feel like that was you? Like in your head?
Yeah. I convinced myself pretty heavily that was like me telling myself, this is how it is.
What was your self-talk like throughout the rest of your life? Had you always been pretty positive in that regard, or?
I've always been a sensitive guy, and I have, like I said before, I internalize criticism. I think, well, not anymore, but I used to definitely. If someone someone would say something and it hurt my feelings, I would just live with it and be like, they're right about you, blah blah blah. So I guess in that scenario, I'd also like that was me telling myself like, this is just how it is. That's you. That's your problem. No one else's concern. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like you always loved yourself though until you really started to have this struggle?
I don't think I understood what that even meant, to be honest. I think I was just so set on like
goals.
Do the next thing, tick the box.
And that you had to achieve those things to be worthy.
But then I did it and I was like, why am I empty?
Yeah, but you still didn't feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I should have been, like I won state award for hotel industry rising star, got taken to like national awards for it and I felt nothing. I was like, whoa, this could be a problem.
Yeah. But it's such a mystery though, isn't it? Especially if you've never had any time or given yourself time to explore those deeper aspects of life and why we do what we do and what's behind it. And it's all the surface level stuff that once you tick all those boxes and hey, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow isn't there. Yeah. You know, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a massive shock. Yeah.
There's a lyric I heard in a song, and I don't even know where it's from, but like it stuck with me since in that phase of my life. It was money doesn't make you happy. It just helps you forget that you're not. And that like completely ties to how I felt at that time. I was like, make the money.
Yeah.
And I'd sit back and go, why am I so miserable?
Yeah.
I'm making the money.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. This is what I'm told I was meant to do. So yeah.
That should be enough.
It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Leading up to that night where you had the suicide attempt, take us through that.
Yeah. Apologise if I get choked up.
Don't apologise.
My ex and my son had gone back to Mount Gambier. We were still together at the time, so I just confused the tenses when I'm speaking about it. But they went back to Mount Gambier for like I think Friday to Wednesday. It was on a Tuesday night. And like I had my day off and I felt completely isolated and alone, and I was like fighting those thoughts of like, you shouldn't be here, you're done, you hate your job, your home life's broken. Like at that point I'd kind of accepted the fact that it wasn't going to last, the marriage. But I didn't want to hurt her and like sit across the table or couch from her and tell her I don't love her anymore, and that I can't.
So you were feeling guilty too?
Yeah, 100%. Massive guilt. And like we had a 5.5, 6-month-old son at the time. Like, how do you look the mother of your child in the eyes and say I don't love you and I can't be with you anymore?
That made you feel like a failure as a man.
Yeah,
too.
for sure. And like attached to that, I also knew that meant I wouldn't see him every day.
Yeah.
And that I work so much that when will I see him? Like it just spiraled from that, like the concept of I have to break her heart, but I also have to ruin my own life to be happy. Like if I want to try and be happy. So I was like fighting these thoughts, and I got to a point where I was like, you either do all of that and throw your life in the bin, or you disappear and no one notices. That seemed like the easier option, which I didn't, like, not proudly, but like, I mean, it's got to me to this point now in my life where I'm the complete opposite, and I wouldn't even recognize that guy on the street if I saw him anymore. But I think I had to go through that and go, like, obviously it's quite disturbing to get to that point, but getting to that point and having that attempt, I was like, I don't think I ever would have been able to be the person I am now if I'd just left her. Like I think my life would be in pieces still if I did the hard, honest, open conversation when I needed to. Obviously, I did have to have that conversation still after when the attempt at my life was unsuccessful. It was only 3 days later I sat down with her. I said all the things that I was fighting, because I was like, that attempt gave me the perspective to be like, no, I do want to be here. My son deserves a father. He doesn't deserve to hear about me in stories, and like told myself the coward's way out, like face your problems, give him an example to look up to, not hear about you in stories, essentially. He is the reason that I fought for my life.
Was that your immediate reaction straight away after that didn't have the opposite result?
It took about 3.5 hours from when I attempted to that point where I was like staring at myself in the mirror, crying my eyes out, just going like, what the fuck? How did you get to that point? How is that what you wanted? Like seeing him in my head that night, I was like, you need to fight. You need to fight for your life right now.
Wow.
You don't want to be gone. You just wanted that part of you to be gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest lesson for me was I didn't want to die. I wanted that part of my life to die. Yeah, that was tough. And then I had to do the thing I was avoiding anyway. So like, I guess 2 large perspective givers.
So tell us about then having to front up and do those things.
Admittedly, I didn't tell her about the suicide attempt until about 4 months later. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not like I went to work the next day, like just a shell of a human being with a fake smile on my face. No one noticed the difference, which probably speaks volumes about where I was at. Because I was ashamed, I think. Yeah. A little bit ashamed of what I'd tried to do. Didn't want to. I think honestly, in my head, I was like, I wanted to lose it all because ultimately I was going to anyway.
Yeah.
But then when I was unsuccessful and I got that perspective and I wanted to be alive and show my son that like you can go through shit and come out the other side and be okay and fight and work towards being a better person, that then it would be stripped away from me. So like a little bit of me at work was like, don't let anyone know anything's wrong. You'll be fine eventually. You'll work on yourself. Right. And you'll slowly start getting those things back in life that you enjoy. But obviously I knew I still had to have that conversation in a couple of days when she got back from Mount Gambier. As to why, I guess it was just the, like, I don't want to lose this. Now that I've fought for it, I don't want to lose it again. Well, not again, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so when you did go through with that and the family split up and you did have to face that pain, how did that impact your mental health from that point on? Because obviously you're suffering to a huge extent already and you're not sharing that with anyone, and then you're having to go through and break someone's heart and do the very thing that you were so afraid to do.
Yeah.
How did you get through that period of time?
I cried a lot, like every day for the first 6 months after, probably for about 2 hours a day, morning and night. I'd wake up, bawl my eyes out, have a shower, go to work, not act like nothing was wrong. People started to notice the shift in me, and then like they learnt that I'd had that conversation and we'd split up, and everyone was concerned about me and stuff. So like everyone's paying extra attention to you. So I felt extra need to be like, I'm good, everything's fine.
Yeah.
When obviously I wasn't, but like morning and night, just bawling my eyes out. I'd journal like every single day religiously when I got home from work, wrote down every thought I had for the day. Did everything I could, but like, man, it was probably the most like emotionally draining 18 months of my life post suicide attempt.
Yeah. Were you ever suicidal again?
No. Like I've had a lot of psychology appointments, so like from when I attempted to take my life to 18 months later, I was going weekly.
Yeah.
And now I just do monthly check-ins over the phone.
What got you in there?
The fact that I didn't want to die, and I was scared about what my brain was doing. Like if I'd convinced myself that time to try, is it going to happen again?
Yeah, without taking some drastic action to fix it.
Yeah, and I like ultimately, and this is something I still use as perspective now, when you have to sit across the table from someone, or it was on the couch, but sit across from someone, the mother of your child or whatever it is, the person that meant the most to you or should, and look them in the eyeballs and tell them you don't love them anymore. That is the hardest conversation I've ever had to have. And I had 120 staff at one point, and I had to sack people, like hire, fire, everything, disciplinary meetings or whatever. And that shit just seems so easy now. Anything I do in life, I think back to that conversation. I'm like, it's not that hard. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I still to this day, when I think about it, I get a little bit choked up because I watched her heart break through her eyeballs. Like, nothing's that hard. Go talk to someone. You don't even know them. What are they going to do? Judge you? How's that going to affect your life? It's just like, it's crazy how much perspective trying to take my life actually gave me about how much I want to be alive. And I wouldn't and would try and steer every single person away from that path that I can, but that's what not helped me, but that's what guided me away from wanting to die, was actually nearly dying.
Yeah, and hurting someone else can be way worse than what you feel like you could ever do to yourself.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, like I said,
which shows that you do love them. You do love them, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's complicated.
As a person, rather than in a romantic sense, I think was the point. Like, we'll always have that connection, being my son. So like, I never wanted to ruin her life or make her world harder or anything like that. But like, for me, it was necessary at that point. That's what I had to do. That conversation was it. Because I did the other option, it wasn't right either. So hard conversations, unfortunately, but again, trained me to be where I'm at now. So.
Yeah, and you got to have the hard conversation, and
you really do.
In most, if not all cases, pushing it off just makes it a lot worse down the road.
Yeah, just compounds into something way bigger than it needs to be.
So what did you do to recreate yourself other than the psych appointments?
I stayed in hospitality for about another year after that. I'd moved to Melbourne, which is the same distance to Mount Gambier, so I still see my son the same amount of time, just driving there from Melbourne rather than Adelaide.
Before that happened, did you finally open up to someone that you know?
Sorry, yeah, I did. Yeah, actually one of the coaches at the gym I went to in the city, she was like, I moved from the original CrossFit gym I was at to a new gym. Just, I needed a change of scenery, and like I didn't want to be in that mindset of like associating that place with where I was at in life.
Yeah.
So I went somewhere new and like got to know the coaches and stuff. And I was sitting there after a training session. I just sat there for like an hour. And I obviously looked like I was like upset or something wasn't quite right. And she's like, her dad attempted suicide earlier in her life. She's like 45 at the time. she comes over and she's just like, James, you okay? I was like, not really. And that was the first person that I was like actually honest to about not being okay.
Yeah. What was that like?
Off the first, scary, but like also felt like a huge weight was lifted off me immediately after I said that. And she like sat down because she'd just finished for the day. She sat down and she's like, let's talk about it. I was like, what? What's going, why do you care?
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't that long after, probably like 4 months after. Just, yeah, I don't know. She just, for some reason, that was the one time I was like, just be honest. Just say you're not okay. Because like I was struggling with it. I was seeing a psychologist at the time, but like, I think it was that real connection with someone that you see daily, like someone actually cares about you in your life.
Well, it's even more vulnerability on your part too, because the psychologist is impartial. That's their job.
Yeah.
So what did that do for you when you were able to open up to her?
Well, it allowed me to go, like, you can actually talk about how you feel, for one, but it sparked like, just talking to her, we had probably like 5 or 6 conversations over the coming weeks in person. It sparked this like weird drive in me to want to do it for other people too.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if I'm feeling like that and I had the perfect life on paper, right? What are my mates feeling? Like, I don't want to lose mates.
Yeah.
Or like my mates didn't have the life I had. Maybe they're happier. I don't know, but I'm not going to just guess or like let it go and see, like, down the line, find out they were fucking miserable and felt alone. So her doing that one conversation not only helped me be more open and vulnerable about how I feel and express that I do struggle openly, like I was talking about it on social media and stuff after her opening up. So she was really the catalyst for me. But like, she also motivated me to be her for other people, which is cool. Like, to this day, I'm like, if she didn't do that, I don't know, would I have done it?
Yeah, wow.
Would I have done all these things that I've done since? Like, probably not.
And that's just one conversation.
Just one person changing.
The catalyst
that's
for that.
The whole, like, a conversation changes.
And there's nothing weird about wanting to be that for other people.
No.
Because if you scratch it back, that's one of the most significant things that ever happened to you.
Literally.
So of course, and it's so easy but so hard. As well.
Yeah.
Anyone could technically do it, but it still takes so much too. But obviously something that's going to have such a big impact on you and be a big part of why you're still here and making you into who you are now. Of course you want other people to feel like that too, man, because this is the stuff that actually really matters. Yeah,
I think that's probably where obviously it led to a career change down the line, but like that was the point where I was like, you can make an impact on people.
Yeah.
Shit.
And was that feeling you were missing?
Yeah. And then it made me realize that the reason I hated my job wasn't the hours I was working. It was that I didn't have job satisfaction. I was going to work every day. The 2 main things that we marketed were drinking and gambling.
Yeah.
Like, that's ruining people's
Not
lives.
The best
not
for
helping
the soul.
them. No, but like, it's a staple in Australian culture, but like, and it paid well. But again, money wasn't it for me. So why am I doing something I don't enjoy?
And of course, you're an individual. That's how you feel about it. We're not just saying, oh, that's wrong for everyone. But
no, not at all.
If you feel like I'm not being fulfilled by this isn't my purpose.
This isn't my career. Like, this isn't what I'm passionate about. I want to dedicate my life to being known for.
And you probably never took that seriously before because you thought that doesn't really matter. What matters is the stuff that I need to get down on paper.
Passion is what you get to do. This is my mindset before. Passion is what you got to do after work.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You don't get to love what you do. That's just a part of life. You do passion in your spare time, not when you're getting paid.
And how do you see that now?
I love my job, man. Like, genuinely making an impact on people's lives, getting paid to do it. And like, in an environment where I feel so appreciated, it's like, it's on another level. And
you're a strength and conditioning coach now?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Head coach in a gym. Yeah, man, it's funny how, like I said earlier, if I saw old me on the street, I would have no idea who that guy is. I wouldn't even know how to talk to him. It's just a completely different person.
That was you not long ago either.
Not long ago at all, less than 3 years ago. It's 3 years in like a week and a half.
So if you had to drill it down to something that someone can take away, like what changed, what switched in your head? Because it sounds like the narrative did, right?
Yeah.
You changed that story in your head.
Well, someone telling me they care, or showing me that they care more so. Like, ultimately, that one moment where Sally, the coach at the gym that I was at, showed me that she cared, I was like, wait a minute. People do care. Like I knew I wanted to be alive because of my son. He was my motivation and I needed to change my life for him, but she was the one that like changed my path, I guess.
You were also ready to receive that at that point, though,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
you knew people cared before, but you had that wall up.
Yeah.
And it's like you broke.
I think I was
beyond
ready
that.
to accept that people cared, not that people did care. I think you're accurate there. Yeah.
And that you wanted to love yourself
yeah.
now.
Well,
yeah.
I was done hating myself.
Well, you decided that you wanted to be here.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which if you'd said that to me prior, I wouldn't have even understood what you're saying. What do you mean love myself?
And your relationship with your son now?
Really good, really good. I only see him every month in person. They live 6 hours away. I drive there 2 months. The third month she'll drive here, or halfway here, and that's our agreement. But we FaceTime 2 or 3 times a week. She sits there like an absolute trooper and holds the phone up while he runs around the house like a maniac and just shows me all of his toys and his posters and everything that he loves. And yeah, it's really good, man. And he like tells me he misses me and he loves me and all that sort of stuff. So real wholesome stuff. And like we said off camera before, it's like, for me, it's the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
It's like, it could be so much worse. I could not see him at all, or like she could have essentially kept him from me because of the struggles that I had and where I was at mentally at the time of separation and stuff. So yeah, I'm just really grateful that we were both big enough to go, that's our problem. We need to do what's best for him, not for our own personal ego feeding, I guess. Yeah.
And you got more reasons to live than just
100%.
one now.
Yeah, and I respect her like crazy. For her to sit there on the phone for 20 minutes holding it up just so I can see him and talk to him on a weekday when she's worked all day. Beyond grateful for her. So yeah.
And you've also raised tens of thousands of dollars for mental health through Are You OK Day.
Yeah.
You got your third big fundraiser coming up next year.
Yeah.
How's that going to go?
Yeah, it's going to go. It's going to hurt. But
Yeah.
The last 2 I did were like weight vest walks, 84Ks, then 100Ks over 2 years, like one a year. And this one was just, I need to do something bigger than that. And I floated the idea past a few people about cycling from Adelaide to Melbourne, which works out to be 1,050 plus kilometres over 7 days. So it's like 150 plus Ks a day.
Are you on the bike much these days?
Every day.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
That's a good
I'm
time.
sore, but I'm good. I had to scale back my training a little bit as far as resistance training goes. But yeah, just getting used to being in the saddle that much, essentially. But yeah, it's more just the cycle itself isn't so much what it's all about. Obviously, it's doing something extreme so people pay attention to it. But the root of it all is talking about the struggles. The whole thing is, I talk openly now about where I was at, what I went through, how I handled it, all that sort of stuff. So much so the second event I did the 100K walk in a day. Are You OK actually reached out to me and made me an official community ambassador. They flew me to Sydney and did like public speaking training and like brand awareness and all that sort of stuff, and how we tie the two, my story and their brand, together. Over the last 18 months, I've had over 100 people through my mental health page reach out to me and start conversations either about themselves, tell me about their own experiences. Some have been like their partners had taken their own lives and they wanted to express their like gratitude that someone's doing something about it. All these like, I stopped at 100. I was like keeping a tally in my notes on my phone, but it's like just that impact alone for me is like what it's all about, reaching people, real people, and showing that we're not alone.
What do you think of the fact that you're someone that people come to for that now?
That's wild, man. Like genuinely, if I'd done all these things I'm doing, like in the Are You OK space, and one person had reached out, I would have been grateful. But like, it's like mind-boggling how many people have, and people that I know too, like people that either have been in my life or like I went to school with or like worked with for a couple of years. They just reach out of nowhere and just be like, hey man, like what you're doing is effing huge. I could never do it, but like.
And plenty of people that you don't know.
Yeah, and one of my mates actually, I worked with him for like 4 years, and he's not doesn't talk about feelings. He's always like, he's a bloke and just gets on with life, like similar to what I was. But he's like, hey dude, I'm like genuinely happy in my life. Everything's really good, but what you're doing has made me pay more attention to everyone around me. I was like, that's a fucking win. That's a huge win.
Yeah.
That like those little ones where I actually, obviously anyone reaching out is cool, but like the people that you know That just hits me so much harder. Like I cried when I read that. I was like, it wasn't even him impacting someone. It was him being more aware of people around him. I was like, that's amazing.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Because that might mean down the road that might make the difference.
He might see that change in someone and start that conversation. Yeah. It's been really cool, man. It's like, it makes it all worthwhile, like torturing my body to do these extreme events. Like, yeah, it's cool, but it's more about the awareness behind it and seeing the circle around me change, which then spreads and that ripple effect keeps going, I guess. Yeah.
And what makes you happy to be alive?
My son. I get to like watch him grow as a person. That's obviously like my main motivation straight off the bat, like without hesitation. But like I get to do things I love every day now. Like I'm around people who are grateful for my time. I'm helping people develop as humans, like both physically in the gym, obviously, but in a gym space, I'm not sure, you probably have noticed it yourself in a gym, but people talk.
Yeah.
And they're more inclined to tell you how they feel. That's most people's happy place. So like being a part of people's happy place or being the person that they can be like, this is my escape and you're a part of it. That's like just giving me passion every day, man. Like it fuels that you are here and you're making an impact. Your life is valuable. And I love it so much that I don't sit at home at night going like, I wish I had more money, or I took 50% pay cut to get out of hotels to get into gyms, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but it does make sense.
On the old James's brain, it doesn't make sense. Old James's
brain didn't make sense.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, it's a hell of a turnaround, man.
Yeah.
You should be proud of yourself, and it's so good to see you so happy now and impacting other people's lives as well, because obviously it's a way better alternative. And the road that you took to achieve so much in some respects so young and figure that out and be at this place now where you've been through all this stuff and you're only 30 now or early 30s now.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost a lifetime's worth of experiences already. And
it's been an intense few years, but yes, 100%. Like the last 3 years has been a wild ride, but I'm glad it's gone the way it has, because it's like I've forced so much of it into this small space where like I've learned that much about myself, and other people have seen it and they've done stuff with it too. Like couldn't be more grateful to be alive every day.
Beautiful. And on that, man. Doesn't get better than that.
How good.
Thanks, bro. That's great.
My man.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to our local business supporters, Herd Financial and First National Real Estate. Making these podcasts isn't cheap and we can't do it alone. If you'd like to become a supporter, please send an email to callum@youngbloodmedia.com.au. If you're getting some value out of the show, please give us a quick rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps us out. You can watch every episode in studio quality video on Spotify and our YouTube channel, Youngblood Men's Mental Health. We go by the same name on Instagram and Facebook, and follow Youngblood Mental Health on TikTok. Subscribe to our e-news through our website, youngbloodmedia.com.au, and most importantly, share this podcast with someone who needs to hear it. We're all in this together. Catch you next time.